Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Give thanks and praise. This one is gonna go so deep, and we're gonna make some far out claims today. Took a long break. I've been doing some analysis on new levels, taking it to places I have never been before, and self-initiating in ways I never imagined. So this one will be a disclaimer for the series to come. I have to take my time. What I will be presenting will be Plato's Symposium, and its revelation of the Enneagram. I have a feeling that this might be the most important project I've been blessed to approach. And I also know that I will get quite a few things wrong, miss quite a few details, and it will be on everyone else to pick this up where I leave it and carry it forward on their own path. Plato's Symposium is a story related through Plato, and it tells of a meeting of the minds of Greek patriarchs sitting around, lounging like sovereigns on the sofa, and bantering, giving eulogies on love, the subject of love. And like a standard symposium, they pass the talking stick around. They pass the microphone in a very revealing order. And in fact, the symposium and the breaking of the seating sequence is part of what reveals its fidelity to the Enneagram. And so I will try to bring some visuals forward. I have a couple copies of Plato's Republic and the dialogs of Plato. And one thing I have come to learn is that there are many translations of this story, which is a fictional account. However, regardless of what translation you read, it still comports to the truth that it is built upon, and that truth is the Enneagram. I'll try to present something I found in one of my copies was an actual visual account of the seating order that these patriarchs, so to say, that they were in a certain seating position. And they, in this layout, this map from one of the books I have on this topic, they even go to such detail as to demonstrate empty seats in between the characters. And they claim that a lot of the insights that they are presenting with these empty seats, that they are deciphered by depictions and art that was on clay pottery from the times. And so I have to tell you, I discovered that seating order well after I had already made my Enneagram correspondences to the to the Symposium. And it was only a reassuring breadcrumb that I was quite on the trail when I found that others have taken the seating order and mapped it out physically, and that its map, to some degree, agrees with my Enneagram chart that I have before you here. That was kind of gratifying, but I did not require that. I already knew that I was quite correct in my assessment. And in fact, I would be presumptuous enough to make corrections on the seating chart that they laid forward. But it's only because they weren't coming at it from the same perspective as I was. And perspective is a very important thing nowadays. That's part of the lesson to this practice here. Now, I shall also make it clear that this is a very, very dark topic. And this is, I believe, quite designed to be utterly repulsive to the common sense of the common man of the common day. And that a lot of what is so utterly repulsive about it is not just all of the homoerotica that seems to have been projected into the very essence and nature of this dialogue between these gentlemen, but also the topic that is so casually bandied about throughout the Symposium, and that is pederasty and the love between, they call it love, because love to them had 7 different translations. And so this is also going to address a horrible, horrible misnomer of culture over all these years, and that is pedophilia. And what we perceive as pedophilia has nothing to do with philia at all. Philia means love. And what we perceive today and attribute the name pedophilia to is not a thing of love. A better name, a more apt name in our modern day sensitivities would be pedovore. They are consuming those children. They are literally vampiring their innocence away. So I am quite aware of the darkness of that subject matter. Believe you me, this has not been an enjoyable revelation. It has been really something that churns my stomach quite thoroughly and quite a few different ways. But to stare into the abyss and know that it stares back at you is, at least it had fair warning going into it. So yeah, that will be on the table here. It will come up. I will have many addendums to my language, as it is so difficult to speak impeccably about what I see here. It's very difficult, very challenging. So I guess a rough draft or a quick run through is in order of the overall thesis. So, as I said, Plato is the one regaling us with this tale. It is named after him. It is immortalized in writing under his name. He is not present at the event. He is removed from. And this is very compliant to the nature of the Enneagram, as Plato is, as I've said before, like Pluto, the slothful one, the balanced one, the peacekeeper. So Plato is speaking through the realm of forms to relay the imagery of this complex system that has been embedded in the Symposium all along, I will mention that Enneagram has 9 letters, Symposium has 9 letters, and ordinal reduced gematria, my favorite of favorite gematrias, they are perfectly equivalent to one another. It's, I believe, 42 in reduced ordinal is sums to 42. Symposium and Enneagram, they do have that in common. Also in other ciphers, their root number was the same. In just standard ordinal, they had the same root number. But I just like that in the most simple and basic of ciphers, they are equivalent to one another. So I'll put that on the screen before I move forward. Now, this will take quite a few installations, and I need to give the rough framework for what is going on here. You will notice that I have made some adjustments from what I was presenting before with the Star Wars arrangement of the Enneagram. Just some very gratifying adjustments have been made to the original layout. And I think what I've done by going back so far in time is I have unraveled quite a few mysteries and just wrinkles in the order of things, as this Empress card and the Emperor card were merged together in the same station in my previous works. So that is something that has actually unfolded or unpacked from this project. And as a result, something needed to give. There needed to be a collapsing. If we're going to expand one thing, then another one must collapse, a give and a take, if you will. So this Magus card, the Magi card, card number 1, it occurred to me to place this card, this number one card, on this dividing line, on the division between the instinct and the body, the act and the feel. And as this Magi card is walking on the tightrope, he's walking in between worlds. This Magi card is powerfully relating the imagery of Nietzsche's tightrope walker. And anybody who has read Thus Spoke Zarathustra, you will know that the opening scene, the initiating scene of Thus Spake Zarathustra, is a fascinating illustration of this exact image of the Magi card, walking on the tightrope and having a fool, this monkey, come and disturb his focus and telling him that he's holding up his superiors, his betters, by hesitating. And so that is really beautiful, profound, true to this division. As up in the top trine we have act, and down below we have feel. And so these two lines are very, very important. They need to be marcated because they divide the exterior world, the acting, the instinctive, the doing up above, the do of the musical lens, the do, needs to be divided. And so this line is very powerful, very significant and important, and in fact is revealed in one of the characters who is relating the story of the Symposium. And so, yes, the Magi card and his walking on the tightrope, which, by the way, is also has been ritualistically depicted with the actual tightrope walker who walked between the Twin Towers. That was also a ritual of Nietzschean observance, shall we say. There's so much more to that. So I just wanted to point out that his fancy little sandals walking along this tightrope is part of the indicator to me that he belongs on this dividing line, shall we say. And it is kind of fun to look at the fool and how much slack he is enjoying. He has the excess the abundance of the rope. It is loosely thrown about him. Very interesting how things shift, how the story develops as we move from this fool to this magi. Now, I find it quite satisfying that there are other characters whose feet become very important as we roll through the imagery of the Enneagram, and that will be the Emperor card. Has one foot on the ground. In his character, Aristophanes, I will bring that forward as we go, as we get into his role. But he literally speaks of a Genesis myth of Greek origin, where a person who is too materially attached, too stuck in the body, that they will be struck by lightning, by Zeus, and become a one-legged soul. And that is really, really fascinating. He also is speaking of cobblers or shoemakers and how they have an implement to iron out the wrinkles of their skin. Well, this Emperor card is definitely carrying some sort of implement there. And we'll get into that. I literally could do an entire video on every station. It may come out something like that. But this dividing line is very important because in the dialogues, they literally shift from this body-feel mentality as they are describing love. They shift into this thinking paradigm. And this dividing line is articulated many, many times by Aristophanes. His particular word choice is speaking of this this dividing line. And they also, as they go through their eulogies, they presage the next station. So you'll notice Aristophanes, he is presaging a hermaphroditic energy. This cutting. He speaks of hermaphrodites in his Genesis storytelling, which is quite gratifying for me because I know that the next archetype is mercurial. And here we have come out of the body and we are now in the realm of thoughts. And sure enough, the planetary association for this next station is Mercury. From the Enneagram perspective, a lot of people are going to want to attach to the glyph that is on the card itself. And that is not going to work out. It's not going to play out perfectly because those glyphs do not correspond to these planetary archetypes of the Enneagram. They're not perfect every time. So that's important to know, that while this is Aries, it's correspondent with Aphrodite. But you will notice that there is this 1 to the 4 connection, which is Aries, Mars, connecting to Venus here. So you will notice, and it becomes quite a labyrinth. It becomes quite a labyrinth if you pay too much attention to the glyph that comes on the tarot card. But I don't want to run down a bunch of dead ends because it will make it very hard to stay fluent as we relate these narratives. Now, another important thing to say here is Agathon, who is the host of the party, he is the one who has gathered everyone together. He is the Hierophant card. I do believe that Lady Frieda Harris was encapsulating the archetypes of the Enneagram and encapsulating the spirit of Plato's Symposium when she made this art. I do believe that the spirit of the Symposium is infused into these cards. I want to make that clear. This Hierophant, card number 5, he does have 9 spikes or meteors coming out of his his headdress or his wreath. Agathon, later on, he is wreathed by Alcibiades, comes into the party at the very end. He comes into the party and approaches Agathon directly. You will see again, much like I said, the 4 to the 1 with Venus and Mars, you will see this Saturn down to Mercury relationship, this 8 to the 5. He goes straight into the party and goes to Agathon and gives him a wreath. And then he attempts to take a position here in between Socrates and Agathon. He is attempting to take the position of the 6, and that is his challenging nature. Now, I am really giving up the ghost here, literally, because the 6 is absent from the party. The 6 is nebulous by design. The 6 is the lover's card. The 6 is Artemis and Apollo. The 6 is Artemis is the public side. It's the loyalty. It's the eros. It's the love. It's the story that keeps people bound together. It's the coming. It's the city. It's the populace. It's the agreement. It's the loyalists. And it has a shadow of fear. That is Hecate. That is Artemis. She is the goddess of the wilderness, of the darkness, of the underdogs. So we will see this nebulous station is being, to some degree, is being passed around. You could almost say this is the microphone that is getting handed off from one individual to the next. But also, I want to say, the 6, the eros, is the person who is telling the story, the person who attended the party. And it is quite significant that they, to some degree, as they are relaying the party, that they are lined up to be the 6, that the eros, this dividing line right here, is in certain lights. You could say that the person who is the narrator, many times is seeing from the 6th position, this empty seat. Now then, there is actually a large, this gap here in the 6th position. It's an empty seat between Agathon and Socrates, which in the very end of the entire symposium, we come to find out that there is a secret hidden love that is revealed to be in between Socrates and Agathon, and that this challenger, Alcibiades, has barged in and is attempting to take that position of the no one. There is no one should get between us. The words are very profound. Now, I also will say that the glyph, or the Hebrew word here on this lover's card, zain, means sword, which is kind of interesting because we know that the sword is the words, is an anagram for words. And again, here, look at this dividing line. The Magi, his glyph means language. The Beth is the language. So we have this correspondence of the words of the teller of the story. Through the eyes of Eros, the words are forming the language of the teller of the story, the one who attended the party in the beginning, who is the revealer, very profound revealer of the nature of all these things. So I needed to put that forward too, and it is quite far out that Socrates is the best fencer in the city, and that is made clear in the Symposium, that he is the greatest sword fighter. And wouldn't you know, the glyph for this chariot card is Cheth, which means fence. And this is a homonym. This is a homonym. Very homoerotic implications, which are somewhat of a prism, a fractal lens, to reveal the duplicitous nature of our own words. These homophones, homonyms and homophones, and all the homophobia that you have to get through to even understand that this system is protected by the priest class of the Actors Guild. And that's why things are so very homoerotic in certain circles of influence. So yeah, Cheth means fence. Socrates is the greatest fencer, and he has the greatest command. Ultimately, in the end of the story, he tells the best philosophy of what Eros truly is. So he becomes the great revelator. And everybody, the crowd goes wild, but they knew they were going to. They knew that they would love Socrates' telling, his regaling of what love truly is. And there are many secrets encapsulated inside of his telling of the story. As he is in the seventh position, he is, that gives him the station of the enthusiast, and he has the shadow of glutton, and that is quite significantly perfect because he is constantly asking questions. The Socratic method is as king. This is also where Zeus was, and they actually say that Socrates is like a god because he is so ferocious and wise on the battlefield. They relate him to a god. So he is in Zeus's position. He is a glutton. They actually say that you can give him endless amounts of drink and he will never become drunk. He is sprawled out on the bench, taking up the most space, much like Putin in Russia takes up the most space. We put Putin here as Putin, Vladimir Putin, Jupiter. Now, things get so profound here. As I mentioned earlier, the challenger, the 8, with the shadow of lust, is going to barge into the party at the end. He is drunk. He is actually being carried by the population. And he is acting. He puts on a show. So here we have penetrated through this boundary, and now the great challenger is going to come into the party and approach Agathon directly and bounce his attention over to Socrates. You will see the heptad inside the Enneagram is quite alive by the behavioral patterns of the characters. And so he bounces his attention from Agathon to Socrates and tries to take this position in between them. Again, it's creepy how homoerotic it becomes. It really is creepy, but that is, the creepier it is, the more you are on track for the truth here. I've said it 1,000 times. The profane obfuscates the profound. It is hiding the profound. And so I just want to make that disclaimer. I want to wash my hands of all the gayness of it all, because I believe that that is designed to filter out and in fact inspire more homophobic recoiling. This is Medusa, and if you look at her long enough, she will turn you to stone. That has dual meaning. It can give certain proclivities a hard-on, or it gives other people a repulsion. It hardens their heart. It makes them hate even more. Hate, hate, hate. You hate the 8. This is the challenge of it all, is to see through the, I believe it is false homoerotica. I think that this whole story was given to us by the Sibylline oracles. I think all of this is from the dark matriarchs. And they inject this into democracy as a foundation bedrock building block so that we will resent these lazy white dudes on couches, the sovereigns, the sofa reigns, the ring of sofas, that they're just laying around talking about love like they got any fucking idea what it's truly about. And in fact, all of them are wrong in their own ways, and all of them are somewhat right in their own ways, much like there are ascended and descended aspects of every station of the Enneagram. Now, something really profound happens here in this dividing line. Socrates, he relates a story from a priestess who revealed to him what love is all about. And in her revelation, we will find deep, deep reflections of the Gospel of Thomas. Thomas Didymus, the name of the oracle, this priestess, who Socrates is is relating the story of. Her name is essentially, Diotima of Mantinea. Diotima of Mantinea is the doubting Thomas. She is the doubting Thomas, and she will reveal the secret of love, the triplicity of love, in the exact words that Thomas was given the revelation from the Christ. And when Thomas came back to the other acolytes, he told them, I can't tell you the secret, or else your words would turn into fireballs and you would throw them at me, but then the fire would consume you for throwing your stones of angst at me. Very mysterious how this revelation comes through as Socrates speaks of Diotima of Mantinea. Mantinea means man has it. We already got it. Now, another point I'm going to make this now is that Alcibiades, who is very lusty, very lustful, is this archetype of the lust card here. He will comment on the crowd. There are many people not on this list who are in the room, witnesses, and he will label them as judgment, as judges. He will speak of their sword and how they will become the judge of Socrates in time, which is true, because when Socrates goes on trial, it is this exact dynamic of Alcibiades' experience with Socrates that gets him put on trial and makes him into a martyr over time. So Socrates on trial, being judged by the masses, as the masses are labeled the judges by Alcibiades. He even says, I will bring witnesses. All of that is absolutely profound, how the prism of biblical mythos is fully alive and well in this story. And then it comes at the very end, Alcibiades will relate many times over. He will speak of statues. He will speak of statuary, and how Socrates appears to be much like old statues of ancient gods. And so I find that quite compelling because of the slothful nature of the nine. The slower one, the Pluto, the Plato, the Plato, the plow. This is the North Star that does not move. There is so much truth. So much truth packed into what I am going to try to unpack here in the next couple installations on the old Slick Dissident Shared Learning Experience. So that was a brief run through, and the next one will probably run long. I might have to do it in a couple installations. So one other thing I guess I should have said earlier at the beginning is I don't have the Enneagram personalities written out here because it would be too crowded. I don't have the room to tell you about the perfectionist with the shadow of wrath. I don't have the room to tell you about the giver with the shadow of pride. I will try to bring a couple of graphics up, and you may want to screen cap them. You may want to have an Enneagram on hand so you can check my work as I lay it out. But I will do my best to maybe I'll have room over in this space here for an Enneagram that you can actually watch the dynamics of the personalities as they go forward. But you're going to have to meet me halfway as the symposium plays through. I'm not going to read the whole thing word for word. I am just going to merely point out the correspondences that I've highlighted as I've read it quite a few times now. And yeah, we're going to talk about some crazy dark shit. The aspect of having a two-tiered legal system is so very dark, but it is also very important that we grasp how ancient it is, how far back it goes. And I am not saying these people are real. I'm not telling you this is history. I'm telling you this is the curse of fiction. This is the Medusa. This is, it's been in play for as long as we've had literacy, you know? So yeah, give thanks and praise. Much love and respect, everybody. I hope everybody's staying nice and cozy. And we are taking a dark, dark, dark journey into Plato's realm of forms. And we're going to bring back some light, you know? We're going to light up the dark and reveal that the mind control spell has deep, dark consistency. It always has, it probably always will, and it's on us to apprehend the head of the Medusa and gain control over the system that has been controlling us in a very multifaceted fashion. All right. Strength and love, y'all.